listening to the Friday Five here on the Agent Survival Guide podcast. This is our weekly recap where we round up 5 of the week's headlines you should know about. I'm your host, Sarah Ruppel, and today is Friday, October 17th. We are kicking off the first Friday of the 2026 annual enrollment period today, and later on in the episode, we will be joined by Jake McGeoy. But before we get to that interview, we'll start out with some field notes at number 5. Last Friday, the Bureau of Labor and Statistics officially announced that the release of September Consumer Price Index data would be delayed. According to their statement, they plan to publish the September CPI on Friday, October 24th at 8:30 a.m. That report is part of the Q3 fiscal data the Social Security Administration uses to determine what the following year's cost of living adjustment, or COLA, will be. The COLA is essentially designed to help offset inflation and manage costs for those living on Social Security benefits. We typically get this data a little earlier, but as we mentioned in last week's episode, it was delayed in previous years due to the government shutting down. Now, should the government pass a funding bill and go back to normal before then, I'm sure we will get an update, but that is currently where we're at with the 2026 COLA. Moving on to number 4. If you've been suffering from ennui at work, listlessness, dissatisfaction, there's a new name for that, the opposite of burnout. We are calling it Rustout. This topic was featured on the Fast Company podcast last week, and for those of us who thrive on challenges and excitement, well, to quote Eve 6, the lack thereof would leave me empty inside. When you look at your schedule and see more and more of the same old thing, when the work starts to feel obligatory, that could be rust out. Has it been a while since you last learned something new? Do you feel like you've hit a wall and you're not making progress? Has your momentum stalled? If so, you could be experiencing rust out. And if you're noticing some of these characteristics in your employees, it's important to pay attention. While burnout comes from essentially being overwhelmed, rust out happens from being underwhelmed. So, how do we fight rust out? Remember how I asked about the last time you learned something new? If we're not seeking out knowledge, seeking out something new, changing what we're doing, then we're staying the same. And in this industry, it does not do well to stagnate. Seek out new information. Get creative. Make goals from those ideas. Don't be afraid to explore. We will be linking to that Fast Company podcast episode and the accompanying article from Forbes in our episode notes, so be sure to check those out. Number 3. On Tuesday this week, Instagram announced an update to their teen accounts, revamping their content filters. The new content filter is based around the same guidelines as the PG-13 designation from the Motion Picture Association. Meta is hoping that this association with a familiar rating system will help parents to better understand the content filters. They've also included 2 additional filters for parents to either amplify or dampen the effects of that filter. So, for a refresh on PG-13, the Motion Picture Association dubs that parents strongly cautioned. Quote, parents are urged to be cautious. Some material may be inappropriate for pre-teenagers, end quote. Users that are under the age of 18 will automatically have their accounts placed in the PG-13 content setting. In the demo shared by Meta, they mentioned that this setting generally aligns with PG-13 movie content rating. Users might see some suggestive content. They also might hear some strong language. For households that would prefer even more conservative settings, There's the limited content, or LC, setting. This is, quote, best if you prefer the most restrictive setting, end quote. For households that aren't as strict, and perhaps teens who are a bit older, a bit more mature, parents can choose the MC content setting, which is, quote, generally aligned with movie ratings for ages 18 plus with extra protections for teens, end quote. However, with this recent update, users will have to ask for permission to change their setting from PG-13 to MC. The default for the 13 to 17 age group is now the PG-13 setting. The change comes on the heels of reports that Meta was not doing enough to protect teens on their platform, as well as Denmark's decision to ban social media for children under the age of 15. Meta mentioned extending their current efforts to now include, quote, strong language, certain risky stunts, and additional content that could encourage potentially harmful behaviors, such as posts showing marijuana paraphernalia, end quote. As the update rolls out, teen users won't be able to follow accounts with inappropriate user names, bios, or content. And if they already follow those accounts, they won't be able to view the content, send DMs, or view their comments. Inappropriate accounts won't be recommended to teens, and teens won't be able to search for them. This also works in reverse, with inappropriate accounts not able to interact with teen users either. Should a link be sent to your teen via text, they'll get the Instagram equivalent of a web page error, telling them that the results are hidden because the content is inappropriate. This mirrors what other apps like Bark already do when your child tries to access a site or app that you've restricted. As the parent of an almost teenager myself, I have to say that this is a welcome change. It's a step in the right direction. The press release mentioned that Meta surveyed a bunch of parents. They gave some really good stats about how much parents liked what they're doing. Personally, I'd have to see it in action and test it out myself for probably at least a month before deciding that my child is ready for social media. Now, if that's you as well, I would recommend taking the parental guidance part of this to heart and do a scroll with your kid. That has been my approach to social media. And while we've certainly made missteps along the way, we keep coming back to this time together to scroll the feed. Laugh at cat videos, learn all about the latest slang, and on occasion, have teachable moments about what not to do online as we scroll past nonsense. Moving on to number 2. If you are an agent in the Medicare space in Maryland, especially if you mainly write Medicare Advantage and Part D business, there's been quite a bit of disruption in your particular market. Jake McGeoy, our senior manager of agent relations in Maryland, reached out to chat about what's been going on. Welcome back to the show, Jake.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Appreciate it.
So you had mentioned that there are some things going on in Maryland right now that agents should know about. What is happening?
Well, yes, we've had an awful lot of disruption. Some of it we were aware of coming into AEP in advance. We found out that Aetna was going to be removing all of their Medicare Advantage plans from the state and also their ACA under 65 plans as well. So that is a disruption for probably 15,000 or more members in the state just on the Medicare side alone. I'm not even sure on the under 65 how many it would be, but we also had United Healthcare decide that they were going to pull the majority of their plans out of the state of Maryland. That, again, we got word of that in late August, I believe, or early September. And so that was another number of thousands of members, not sure exactly how many, but which sort of set us up for this big AEP with a lot of brokers having to move clients that were losing plans over to new plans.
Right.
But then we got some really disappointing news from Care First, which is the large local Blue Cross Blue Shield carrier here, that they were going to go non-commissionable on all of their Medicare Advantage plans, with the exception of the D-SNPs and the MA only Salute plan. Those two they would continue. But initially they said they weren't going to pay renewals on the business either, which was really a big shocker to the agents, being that the plans weren't being pulled out of the market. They were just saying they weren't going to pay on them. Luckily, we had Craig Ritter jump in and really go to bat along with Integrity Legal, and had some very tough conversations with Care First and put the ball back in their court, sort of with the idea that, we weren't going to let that just fly. And they did come back and say, reverse that decision, and said that they would pay renewals, which was great, so we don't have to do any more work on people losing plans. But we had, again, no commissionable opportunity, and that plan really is the most competitive in the state. Then last week, we also had Alderwood come out and say that they're not going to be commissionable for their regular plans. They would only pay on D-SNP. So at this point, we're down in the Medicare Advantage space. We're down to only Johns Hopkins and Humana and Kaiser as the only plans that can be sold. They're not in all counties. They will not cover every demographic. They don't have all of the hospitals. So there's going to be quite a bit of situations where we just don't have a solution for people in the state of Maryland this year during AEP. So I know it's a lot, but it is a lot.
I was going to say, I was waiting for that to stop, and you just kept on going there. So it's one thing we talk about disruption, and we've said it with other markets, like nationally as a whole, with some Part D plans going non-commissionable or, select plan terminations here. But it really sounds like Maryland is getting hit hard by a culmination of a lot of these things. So with all of that said, what are you suggesting that agents really should do this AEP? Like, where should they focus their efforts?
Well, two things. One, Medicare supplement, have always been the much more stable option in Maryland. And I feel like a lot of agents, know that and have focused on it. That's been a little bit of a dicey situation in the last couple of years because of this new Maryland law that was passed called the birthday rule, following suit from a number of other states. And that's something that's a trend that's happening all across the country right now. A lot of states implementing their own versions of it. But in Maryland, that has been stabilized, and we now have, in effect, as of October 1st, a law that says that those birthday rule applications must be paid on the same as they would an open enrollment application. So long story short, that the MedSup is a good option, and there's not really the concern of not being paid on that business now. So that is one place to definitely focus. There's going to be, people that are losing a Medicare Advantage plan that are clients. A MedSup is not always a good fit for them. It's just because of the pricing. Sometimes it's more expensive and they can't afford it. And you can only go to a plan G. When they lose an MAPD plan, you can only go to a plan G or a plan F, depending on when they were born, which one they're eligible for. So it may be too expensive for them, but if it's not, that would be one place to definitely think about moving them. And right now, Humana is paying on those guaranteed issue sales where they're losing an Advantage plan. So we can get paid on those, and their prices are pretty darn good. So that's one good option here. And the other thing, I think the other thing that agents need to think about is just trying to refocus their efforts rather than looking for Medicare Advantage sales, thinking about other ancillary products, thinking about other things they can do to make money, things that are a little bit more stable right now. So the MedSup would be one, but again, you've people that are in Advantage plans, if they're going to be in Advantage, they're going to stay in one, and maybe it's not one that's going to pay. You can still make money writing hospital indemnity programs that go along with those. You can still make a few $100s a pop on those. You can add on cancer plans. You can do other things like that and maintain the relationship with the client while this sort of settles down. Because I think usually it does come in waves. These things, they kind of ebb and flow, and you're going to have these years where it's really tough, and it'll probably come back. It's done it before here and come back. But meanwhile, you can also focus your efforts on the surrounding states. Delaware's got a great market. Virginia's got a great market. Pennsylvania's got a great market. And they're nowhere near the kind of shape that Maryland is right now. So it may be that you want to just shift your marketing to a nearby location.
Right. You mentioned a lot of these different disruptions and things that are going on. The impact that has on the agents, depending on how heavily your book of business is rooted. If you have a lot of these carriers in your book of business. Obviously, it's going to affect some more than the others. But what is the impact on agents as far as having some of these non-commissionable plans and having these plan terminations?
Yeah, well, so that's a great question. I mean, the good news is that the plans that are non-commissionable, they're at least paying renewals. So those people that, have a book of business there, that plan's still in place. They're still going to get paid if the client stays on it. So you don't have to really do anything with those folks because for the most part, those plans have stayed essentially the same. They're not really changing much. If anything, maybe improving a tiny bit. So at least there, you don't have to move those. The bigger impact is the people that have a book of clients on Aetna or United who are losing, they don't have anywhere to put them in another Advantage plan. So that is the big impact. And again, as I was mentioning, I think, the first thing that you should be thinking about as a broker is, can any of these people fit on a MedSup? Would they, MedSup coverage is going to be stronger coverage. You can go anywhere you want. There's really no out-of-pocket expense. It's just a matter of, can they afford the premium? That's the question. Right. So if they can afford the premium, then I would say that that's the right thing to do. But it's going to impact those brokers because they have to find a place to put those folks or else lose them. We don't want to do that. We want to be able to serve our clients and make sure that they're taken care of.
So if we are looking at the MedSup opportunity, or we're looking at selling an ancillary product alongside of Medicare Advantage coverage that maybe isn't commissionable, how does Ritter fit into that equation, streamlining that and helping so that it's not such a chaotic annual enrollment period for the agents in Maryland?
With the Integrity platform that's there in place for everybody, number one, you can run those quotes on the MedSups through the CSG link through the Integrity portal. And two, you can do enrollments to some of the carriers right from that as well. You can also, if you do have all your clients and profiles in the Integrity platform, you can also use the platform to get messaging out to them, to reach out to you, to set appointments, to help make that a little faster rather than having to one at a time call them or hopefully wait for them to call you rather than talking to someone else. That can help streamline the process of getting in touch with those people. And then we have all the contracts available for each of the carriers that would be a good, suitable option, as well as the contracts for all the good ancillary products that we would recommend. So I've been keeping my counterpart, Nathan, from the Harrisburg office up to speed on everything. I've got Damon and Amy from down in North Carolina, who are now part of our Shared Territory 3, helping me as well. And so all four of us can answer questions and hopefully point agents in the right direction if they have specific questions on that stuff or want to just chat about, game plan and things like that. So, we're here to support the agents from a, talking standpoint, and we have all the tools to help get the job done. It's just sort of being aware of the situation, knowing how to deal with it, and then trying to keep your chin up, a smile on your face during some of these times.
And with that being said, are there any final thoughts that you can offer or words of encouragement for our agents who might be looking at this annual enrollment period like, oh my gosh, I can't even fathom where to begin? What would you say to those agents?
Well, I think it's just a matter of realizing that the industry is always changing. There's always going to be give and take, and there's going to be also years of opportunity. We've got a ton of opportunity with the birthday rule situation now. We've got tens of thousands of clients in Maryland who are overpaying for Medicare supplements, who we can write all year long on their birthday into a lower price plan, save them money and earn commission without underwriting. So, sometimes just got to recognize where the opportunity is and know that those that are not as committed to this business will probably leave, and then we'll have even more need for those that do double down and stay and stick it out. So good things to come to those who wait.
Well, I like that. I think there's always a positive. Anytime anything like this happens, there's always a way to see opportunity. And I appreciate you coming on and letting us know about what's been going on in Maryland and how agents can hopefully find the opportunity at this AEP and be able to still do business and still have a successful AEP.
I appreciate it. And again, I hope if anybody is concerned about what to do, hopefully they'll reach out. We appreciate you getting the word out.
To echo what Jake said, If you have questions, please reach out to Jake and his team. We will have the links to contact them in our episode notes. And if you have questions about similar issues in other states this AEP, please reach out to our sales team. The page we'll be linking to has the country broken out by region. You can easily identify your local field representative, the sales advisor, and the agency specialist for your region. So check it out and get connected this AEP. Coming in at number 1 this week, the annual enrollment period for coverage year 2026 has officially begun. eHealth recently published the results of an interesting survey they held in September of this year. They polled 1,500 current Medicare beneficiaries and logged their responses. And some of the responses are concerning, but they also definitely show that the agent still plays a significant role in the enrollment equation. Couple of highlights I'd like to mention. 75% of respondents agreed with the statement that, quote, shopping for a Medicare plan is confusing, end quote. 18% disagreed, and 7% were uncertain. 33% of respondents do not plan to review their coverage options this AEP. And also concerning, 33% of respondents, quote, don't have a good understanding of the differences between Medicare Advantage, Medicare Supplement, and Medicare Part D plans, end quote. 15% of respondents aren't sure if they're going to review their coverage this fall. 53% of respondents said they had, quote, not yet received or are unaware of having received their annual notice of change letter, end quote. 24% claimed they were not aware of ever receiving an ANOC in the mail from their insurance provider. 64% of those enrolled in Medicare Advantage plans thought that coverage between Medicare Advantage plans was, quote, generally the same, including prescription drug coverage and provider networks, end quote. And despite the fact that some beneficiaries either do not plan to review their coverage or aren't sure if they'll review their coverage, 80% of Medicare beneficiaries admitted that being in the wrong plan would be financially damaging. One of the most surprising numbers to me was the number of respondents who admitted to being confused by Medicare. Not because we haven't heard this before. I feel like we hear it a lot, but I thought the number would have been a little lower by now. That number again, 75% of respondents agreed that, quote, shopping for a Medicare plan is confusing, end quote. The survey also asked respondents to identify what they thought was the, quote, single hardest thing to understand about shopping for a new Medicare plan, end quote. 4% of respondents were not sure which drugs are covered. 5% of respondents were not sure how to get help. 15% had trouble understanding which services are covered. 21% were confused by the differences between the different kinds of Medicare plans. 22% found out-of-pocket costs difficult to understand. And the biggest issue for 26% of respondents, whether or not their doctor would be covered by the plan. The answers to that one question alone are good to know if you're wondering what and where to spend your time educating clients on during an appointment. In addition to that, and the stats I mentioned, there are quite a few good takeaways for agents. We'll be linking to that eHealth survey in the episode notes so you can read it for yourself. I think the most important takeaway that I get from all this data is that agents need to be proactive with education and reaching out to your clients. Given some of these responses and percentages, I would not expect that the average Medicare consumer is going to actively reach out to review their plan and discuss changes with you. You are going to have to be providing that service And hopefully you've been keeping in touch with your clients all year long. You've sent out the annual coverage review letters, and you are ahead of the game here. For the agents who aren't, it might be a difficult AEP. And for the agents who are prepared, who have a portfolio that's ready to go, you've done your due diligence, there might even be opportunity to pick up some additional clients from agents who are not keeping their clients informed. Don't forget to check out the episode notes for all the resources we mentioned here in today's episode. And if you have questions about a topic you heard here today, or maybe something you've been hearing out in the field, drop us an email at asgpodcast@ritterim.com. That's all we've got for our first Friday 5 of AEP 2026. I hope you have a great weekend. Stay healthy and stay safe out there, and we will see you next week. The Agent Survival Guide podcast is a production of Ritter Insurance Marketing, an integrity company. This episode was written and produced by me, Sarah Ruppel. Special thanks to Jake McGeoy. Script editing and fact check by Tina Lamoureux. Podcast design by Urban Rivera. Follow along with us wherever you like to listen.